Hello everyone, this is YLAM here. In today's Fuji Friday, we're going to be talking about the GFX ecosystem. This is because the news for this week is kind of light, but there is a big announcement going on for the GFX system that was just announced. So we're going to cover that, and then we're going to do a little bit more of an in-depth talk about the GFX ecosystem and what it means for us enthusiasts and also maybe some professionals who can't really command the high dollar amounts that this camera is really geared towards. So on May 23rd, Fujifilm is going to be announcing their GFX 100, which is their 100 megapixels medium format camera. So we're going to get to know all of the specs and most likely the launch date, which is what they normally do. So it's going to be really exciting to see exactly what this monster can really do. As you can already guess, a 100 megapixel medium format machine is definitely for high-end photography. So we're really geared towards a very niche group of people, so people that can really command high dollar amounts. But what it does mean is that because they're doing all of this R&D research, eventually it's going to trickle down to GFX cameras that are going to be more affordable, hopefully in the Nikon D850 range. I think that's a good price range for enthusiasts. So as long as we can get to about that price point on a GFX camera eventually, I think it's going to work out really well for us. Now, having said all of that, the first generation of GFX cameras, should we invest in that system? And my answer to you is no, and that's because the first generation of any camera systems, you're basically a beta user. That's kind of what we are nowadays when we buy into the first generation. This is the reason why I did some videos on the Nikon Z7, but I never really considered purchasing it. The same for all of the rest of the camera lines that got introduced this year. And I can also give you an example on the Fujifilm lineup, which is the Fujifilm's X-H1. I consider that to be almost a niche camera system, and the people that adopted it first, the people that bought in like myself, we feel a little bit burned because what happened is less than a year later, the X-T3 came out and it had a far superior processor and a better sensor that went along with it, giving us some really epic results. And now we're seeing great firmware come down for the X-T3, but we're not really seeing anything more for the X-H1. So anytime there's a new camera system that comes in within an ecosystem, I'm always leery to actually go buy it unless I'm just covering the camera. I purchased the X-H1 because of this channel, because I wanted to cover the details of the X-H1. So while I do feel burned, I don't really feel bad because I was going to purchase the camera anyways. But I do know a lot of people where they bought the X-H1 and that was their introduction into the Fujifilm lineup. And they don't really feel all that great because their camera value has declined dramatically. Plus they're not getting the latest firmware. They feel like they're being left behind when they just purchased a brand new camera. And I really do feel for you, but unfortunately that's the state that we're in for the X-H1 right now. I'm kind of digressing off the point right now. So the point is, for the current GFX lineup, unless you want to be a beta user, you want to be the first one in there to really try out the latest generation of medium format gear, you're getting a product which will probably see significant improvement in the second generation, and it's probably going to be at a similar price point. I would definitely recommend waiting for the next generation of either 50 megapixels or maybe a lower cost 100 megapixel sensor, but I doubt it. I think the 50 megapixels is going to be around for the while just because 50 megapixels is quite a lot, and I really do think as an enthusiast you really don't need more than 50 megapixels right now. Obviously the GFX 100, that's their showcase piece. That's going to show the world what Fujifilm can do with medium format, plus all of that R&D research is definitely going to help out as they continue to make better cameras. But before picking one of those up, I definitely recommend you watching plenty of reviews on YouTube to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into, because it is an entirely different ecosystem with lenses that people aren't very familiar with just yet. The last topic that I want to talk about, and I definitely want your opinions on this, is whether or not you want to convert over to medium format, because really at its core, a lot of people like the idea of having a bigger sensor and more quality, but are they willing to give up the performance of full frame right now? Because as we all know, medium format and full frame, they're separate, so you shouldn't compare them to each other. It's like comparing full frame to APS-C. People do it all the time, but a lot of people will say you shouldn't do that. Unfortunately, since Fujifilm's skipped full frame altogether, their cameras are always going to be compared to full frame. While I do think it is quite unfair, I think that it's going to happen all the time, and Fujifilm's just going to have to live with it. At this point in time, I just don't see adoption rates increasing until they get focusing speeds, especially continuous focus, to a similar performance of full frame. And I think that is a huge hurdle, a huge technological, huge research hurdle, unless of course the GFX 100 has solved that. That's one of the big key items that I'm really looking forward to, is continuous autofocus. Is this camera going to be able to capture fast motion? Are the lenses quick enough to really do that type of work? Because if we start seeing glimpses of that in the GFX 100, then I really do think the medium format line has a very bright future. Now, if we don't see that in the GFX 100, then I really think the medium format line is going to take a really long time before adoption rates increase, which means prices are going to remain high, which means the vast majority of enthusiasts probably will not be interested in this type of camera. I would be interested in covering the GFX line, but that's purely for this channel. For me to be interested as an enthusiast, I want this to be a really good hybrid camera. In other words, we know that it's going to do photography really well, but I also need it to do 4K really well. I need it to do well in video, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to what the GFX 100 could do. So those are my quick thoughts on it for this Friday. Definitely give me your thoughts on whether or not the GFX line is going to see early adoption. Are you thinking about actually going up to a medium format camera? Do you see adoption in the next 1 to 3 years? Please let me know, and I'll talk to you in the next video.